couple weeks ago when I started putting together these little talks, the underlying theme was, how can we be relevant in the face of the machines? And as the idea has taken genesis, what I've kind of come up with is, and I've already started this, I'm writing a series of mini books, and each mini book will cover these topics that the two we've done today and a couple more, and they'll be very inexpensive ebooks, and then each one of them at the end will have a QR code with a little video. So I think this will be good, very consumable, just bullet point, direct, Joe business kind of stuff. So that's the topic that the structure that we're doing. And so today's topic is going to be negotiation. Negotiation is kind of a big hat topic, and I've been teaching it for almost 30 years. I wrote the first course that was ever approved by the Nevada Real Estate Commission for negotiation, and I've been negotiating my whole life, as I always have. And so I've learned over time that negotiators aren't really born as much as they are made. And there's a set of skills that people who have been trained in negotiation understand and implement to get better outcomes, okay? Now, I think a couple of you have taken Real Negotiation, actually teaching it February 7th if you want to join us. It's an awesome class, totally different from Does It Pencil. But another really important thing to have, because you use it all the time, okay? Now, I've got my set of things that I'm going to talk about, but before I do, let me just open it to you guys and ask, do you want to say anything about negotiation? Do you have any questions, things that you'd like to talk about today, that kind of thing? Just go ahead and speak freely.
Is your class going to be online?
It is. I'm teaching it on Zoom.
Excellent.
So if you send me an email, joe@joestill.io, I'll send you a registration link.
Perfect.
And I think you can get Idaho credit for it. I have to check. It's a Washington-based class, but it's approved in Idaho. Just to make sure about the delivery method. So we'll talk about that.
Yeah, no worries. If I don't get Idaho credit, I got so many classes now.
Okay. Yeah, you should just show up. It's yeah, it's a cool class. I love teaching it. Okay, so I don't have a handout for you today, so get something to write with, and I'll give the notes that you need, okay? So the first thing that you need to know about negotiation is the role of time in a negotiation. The role of time, T-I-M-E. I have a little cliche that I use, skilled, trained negotiators. And that little cliche kind of separates people who have done some sort of training, be it my course, read a book, another course, whatever. They've had some formal training in negotiation compared to everybody else. So to me, the first skill set that a trained, skilled negotiator has is they understand the role of time in a negotiation. I have a whole dissertation I do about this in the course, and I'll cover it in the book. But for now, what I want to say is this. Most of the time, if not all of the time, negotiations are set against a time deadline. They are. So one of the first things that you need to do as a trained, skilled negotiator is to discover what is your counterpart's deadline. All right, that's the first thing, the role of time in a negotiation. The second thing is two words, and it's what I call higher authority. Higher authority. The use of higher authority is another hallmark of the trained, skilled negotiator. Now, I'm an American, I live in America, but I've also studied international negotiation as well. Not a lot, but some. And I have negotiated with people from different cultures, and maybe you have too. It's interesting, when you study it, what you learn is that there are some striking cultural differences between Americans and other cultures. One of the most striking is Americans all want to be in control. We want to be in charge. We want to show up and say, it's my decision. I have the authority. I have the power. Okay. It's a very egocentric point of view. But in terms of its effectiveness, it's entirely wrong. Okay. To get a better outcome, what's that?
Unknown caller.
Oh, okay. Well, if it's an unknown caller, I'm going to put you on mute. Okay. The truth is that the best outcomes that you get in negotiations are when you show up with little or no authority in the negotiation. So the strongest position that you can be in at the table is when you show up as an agent for a decision maker and all other decision makers, your counterparts, are present. Your people are not. The strongest position is when you show up as an agent for a client and your client's not present, but the other side's decision makers are present. That's the strongest position you can be in terms of information exchange, discovery, decision making, things like that. And it's very counterintuitive for Americans, but it works. And I've been using this for years, and it's crazy how well it works. Okay. All right. Sorry, my notes kind of bent there. Okay, the third one.
Wait,
All right.
hold
Yeah.
on real quick. on
Sure.
that.
Yeah.
That's where presenting our offers directly to sellers is more beneficial when our clients aren't there and we can present that offer, but no agents. I mean, there is like a minuscule amount of agents that actually allow us to do that.
Yeah. Well, listing agents need to be in a 12-step program with their control issues. Didn't start yesterday. We all know that. Okay. And I got my license in 1987. And so I've seen a real change, a real genesis in this whole notion of representation over the last 35 years. When I started out in this business, it was completely appropriate for a buying agent or a tenant representation, because I'm a commercial guy, to go to the principal, to go to the seller, to the landlord with their agent there, no end running, with their agent there, and make the presentation. Okay? It's only been in the last probably 20 or 25 years that this wall has gone up. Oh no, we don't allow you people to show up at our party. Well, we'll just decide on our own. Okay? And actually, that's a very effective countermeasure for the listing side in that example. Okay, next one. Probably the most misused, misunderstood, and abused negotiation tactics in the entire gambit of negotiation. 3 words: split the difference. Everybody thinks they know how to split the difference. Very few people do. And obviously, 10 minus 2 is 8. We understand that part. But what people don't understand is when and how to use split the difference.
Can I get a large strip coffee, please, with cream?
No.
Me too.
Yeah. I'm going to bring one for the whole class.
I'm
Right?
sorry, sir. This is a Wendy's.
That's right. Can I get a pepperoni to go? Okay. So back to split the difference. So there's a couple really important things about split the difference. And the first one that I'll leave you with is this. Only use split the difference at the end for small items to complete the agreement. At the end, small items to complete the agreement. I have, embarrassingly for our industry, seen many too many times people show up and they're like, we want 500,000. Well, we'll give you 400. How about 450? Don't do it that way. Okay. It's not right. It's not effective. It doesn't work. Just don't. The other thing is the math of split the difference, and it takes too long in the scope of today to explain that, but there is a mathematic to it, which I do explain in the course and I will in the book. Okay, but for today, just be careful about using split the difference. It's a very small tool. Use it for small items and use it at the end to finish the agreement. Okay. Okay. The next thing about negotiation that most people don't understand because they've never really had someone take them aside and go, you should look at this differently, is the role of power in a negotiation. Okay. And what I mean by that is what is the balance of power? Who has the power? Who does not? Okay. Now, sometimes when I speak, I'm kind of a dick, and you guys all know that. I'd be a bit facetious, a bit arrogant, and I usually qualify myself if that's coming, and here it comes. One of the biggest mistakes I see brokers and agents make is cutting commissions. Okay, see, they believe negotiations like this. We start here, and if I take less and I get the deal, then I win. Okay, now, if you don't get the deal, then you get nothing, and we all understand that. But what I'm saying is, when you're here, just because someone says, I want this for less, don't automatically say yes. You don't have to do that. Okay? What you need to do is to examine how much power does both sides have. Okay? Now, I'm going to give you a small example on this one. This is something that happened to me about, 12, 13 years ago. So I bought this house, and I was married then, and we had spent the summers in Hood River, which is just like my favorite summertime place. And, I was able to save some money and this and that, and we could do it. So we want to buy a summer house there, And so we'd go there in the summer and we'd rent. Well, we found this house and we rented it. And of course, it's like the puppy dog clothes you should never do. We fell in love with the house, or she did. It was a good little house. I liked the house. I did. There were some things about it I didn't like, but it's a good little house. So we start negotiating. And of course, the seller goes, oh, well, this is just the best house ever in Hood River. And it wasn't listed. His wife was an agent, but it wasn't listed. We were just making offers based on what we thought the house was worth. And we made, a couple of offers probably. And, again, that was when I was married. And of course, my wife would get so upset when didn't get it, this, that, the other thing. So we were really very different that way, which was complimentary, actually. But I said, okay, we're going to make one more offer, and this is going to be the last offer. And I made this offer because of a conversation that I had with the seller, my landlord at the time. And what I didn't really understand, because I was probably too naive at the time to step back, because, you're never your own carpenter, right? And I listened to this guy and the life that he was living. Like, what's going inside your world every day? Well, at the time, he was living on a sailboat with his wife in Newport Beach, California. Great place to live on a sailboat. But here's the problem. Every time he wanted to go sailing, he took the living room with him. Now, the first couple times, that's kind of fun and sexy. But after a while, and I think his wife was about 30 or something at the time, and one have a baby and have a home and, all the stuff that people do. That wasn't happening as long as he was out sailing the living room around, as it were. Okay. And I knew that in order for him to have any hope of being a homeowner in Newport, he had to sell this house. And I was a broker. His wife's a broker. So I said, this is a commission-free principal to principal transaction. I made him one more offer. I pumped it up a couple $1,000 because at that point it didn't mean much. I had the money to do it. And I just said, here, this is a take it or leave it. If you don't want this offer, don't accept it. And we're just going back to Park City in a month. And that was it. And the important part of that story was two things. Well, two parts. One is I paused in my own life and I tried to examine who had more power here, or what was my power. See, my power was I could make his quasi-marital problems go away because I had the resources to do that. Now, other people might have too, but I'm like, here's this money, just take it and we'll just take the house. Okay? That was my power. Now, the other part of my power, and this is not some great revelation, but it's damn important in the course of human dynamics, is I was willing to walk. Okay, it's a great irony of all of our existence. You tend to be a lot more effective at getting things that you don't want. It's weird, but it's that way, especially when dealing with people. Okay? So my point is, the pressure in any negotiation is probably equally, if not more, on the other side. As much as it's on you, you just have to stop and look and see what the pressure is. And most people don't do that. Most do not. Some do, but not a lot in my experience, okay? Very important. Examine the role of power in the negotiation. And I'll just kind of close this thought with this. Stop just giving everything away on the first round. You really need to stop doing that if you are one who does that. And I'm not going to get into the next example, but I'll tell you, that happened to me this week. We hired another broker to sell one of our properties, and she said, this is my commission, and I don't negotiate my commission. Do not. Never happens. And I go, okay. So I wrote a letter and I said, we'll hire you, but it's going to be 1 point less than what you want. And if you don't want it, fine. We'll find somebody else. No big deal. She took it. So we'll see how well she negotiates for us. So I may have to school her a little bit on that, but anyway, we won't get into that now. Okay. Sorry, my notes kind of bent over. I thought I was so crafty by having them taped onto my tripod. All right, the next one, this is a really great little trick. It's called the power of 3. All right. 3 is a really, really important number in a variety of communication and problem-solving skills. I've just learned this in the last probably 10 years of my life. But what I'm talking about here with the power of 3 is this is a great skill when you're working with people who don't know what they want and cannot make a decision. The most frustrating thing for me and my nature of my personality, I'll talk about personality stuff in a second, but the nature of my personality tends to be more on the dominant and controlling side than on the passive side. You know, big shock, I know. And so when I'm dealing with people who walk into the den of I don't know, it's like the most frustrating thing in the world because they cannot make a decision, okay? And let me just press pause here. It's not that they're bad people. It's not that they're stupid. But some humans among us, they know what they want here. Like they can feel it, and that's legit. They can. They just can't get it from here to here. There's a roadblock, okay? So the rule of 3 is really intended to help them do that. And here's what I mean, okay? So you assess your situation that you're in. I'm just going to pick 3 words just because they're simple. Speed, quality, and service. Speed, quality, and service. And it can be any 3. Let's just say it's those 3. And what I would do is I would say to my counterpart in the context of what we're talking about, if you could only have one of these, which one would you pick? Like, what's the most important one to you? Okay, and that's number 1. Okay, and what's second? And then you get number 3. Now, if they are self-aware and being honest, they're basically giving you a roadmap of their priorities, and then you can adjust your presentation accordingly. Now, I use speed, quality, and service as just common examples, but whatever the situation is that you're in your negotiation, if it's price and terms or whatever, just think about this and push it back to them dot, 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 which one matters to you first, second, third. And you would be amazed at how well that actually helps people who can't make a decision finally get to a point of deciding. It's a simple little thing. It's beautiful. It works really, really well. Okay. That brings us to the next one. Building rapport with strangers. Now, in the course, and in this little books I'm writing, I'll explain some more detail, okay? But for now, here's the summary statement. I guess I'll just start with this. I've done a lot of therapy. We'll just start with that. Read a lot of books, all that kind of stuff. Partly because I'm so messed up, and partly because I'm very curious. And you can kind of pick and choose which one you think I'm more of. But when you do that work, what you find is that psychologists and psychiatrists and PhDs and people that study this kind of stuff basically have broken the human personality into a foursquare. Okay? Now, just by show of hands, raise your hand if you've ever done like DISC or Myers-Briggs or some such thing. Yeah, most of us have. Okay? So you're familiar with this foursquare kind of a deal. There's sub-squares and all that kind of stuff. But there's basically four predominant personalities wandering around in societies all over the world. Okay, this is just how God made us. Okay, so the idea behind building rapport is twofold. One, understand yourself, and that's always the first thing. And I'm a big person on self-knowledge. I just think it's a quest, it's a lifelong aspiration, and people that have a bad life usually haven't done that part, so I say do that part first. Get to know who you are, okay? Once you have that, then you also recognize that there's 3 other personality styles in the world wandering around besides just yours. And if you want to build rapport, you really have to get inside of other people's personality style to communicate effectively. All right, now, hear what I'm saying, hear what I'm not saying. I am saying recognize there are other styles. And the key word there is empathy. E-M-P-A-T-H-Y. The best negotiators, in my view, are also the most empathic. Now, that's not sympathy. It's completely different. That's conveying both directly and by nuance. I understand how it is for you. See, again, another great irony of negotiating, but it makes sense if you think about it. Your counterpart doesn't care about you as much as they care about themselves. It's the same for all of us. So if you can walk into a negotiation firmly rooted in, I want to understand how it is for you, you've just made a new friend. Okay? So oftentimes I quote really one of my favorite authors, people, spiritual advisors, business gurus, whatever you want to call him. He's no longer with us, Dr. Stephen Covey. And his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I think it's habit 5. Pete, help me on this. Seek first to understand and then to be understood. Okay, many of us have heard of this. And if you haven't, write that down. Seek first to understand and then to be understood. Okay, it's magic. It's the simplest and fastest way I've ever found to build rapport. And here's the thing about rapport in a negotiation. People don't just do business. People make agreements with people they like and trust. And if you sell real estate for a living, basically here's what your job is: to build an enormous amount of trust and rapport with a complete stranger in a very short period of time to help them make one of the most important decisions of their entire life.
And it is habit 5, Joe.
Oh, look at me go. Yeah. See? There you go. There's the reason I invited you. It's my local
You and I
researcher.
both have the same mentor, in Stephen Covey.
Yeah. If you've never read that book, you need to. It's awesome. Okay.
And I think I mentioned at our last call that this is the updated version.
You
for
did.
Anybody that has not read this or listened to it,
Yeah.
it's on Audible, and it actually has additional content from Stephen Covey's son, Sean Covey, 30th anniversary edition. It's on Audible and it's off the charts.
Yeah, I should get that.
It's really good.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you, sir. Okay. Continuing on our little path of human relationship skills, let's talk about listening for a second. Okay. And this is obviously sort of communication 101. And most people think they're great listeners, and maybe they are. Okay. But I've really studied this, and I've tried to present a point of view that I'm going to give you next that's simple and memorable. And it goes like this. It's how I define listening. You have listened to someone when they know you understand their position. You have listened to someone when they know you understand their position. So the key word there is not listening, it's understanding. And notice this, it's not agreement. I'm not saying you have to agree with people you disagree with. You don't, and you probably shouldn't. But you should always convey that you understand where they're coming from. The best tool that I've ever found to convey understanding is called reflective listening. Many of us have heard it. Reflective listening is simply repeating back what the other person says in your own words to confirm understanding. So if what you're really saying, if I understand you right, is that I'm completely out of my mind by asking $10,000 for this iPhone 16 Pro Max that has TikTok already installed on it. That's exactly what I'm saying. Correct. You know, I use that example. I heard it on the news this morning. You can't get the TikTok app anymore. So apparently somebody on eBay is selling their iPhone 16 or 15 Pro Max or whatever with TikTok for 10 grand. If somebody buys it for that much, they have an addiction problem. I'm just going to stop with that. Sorry. Something going on here. Okay, that's reflective listening. Let's jump into a very effective little tactic in negotiation. It's called the ridiculous. And the ridiculous is a price objection handling tactic. Now, in its purest form, ridiculous uses the notion of amortization, which is a really important skill in Does It Pencil. Talk about it a lot. It's time, value, money. But basically, it goes something like this. Let's say that you're negotiating with someone. You've been at it for a little while, back and forth, all the things that we do. And let's just say, to pick a number, that you're still $20,000 apart or something like that, okay? You might say to your counterpart something like this. Are you really going to let this whole thing go for the price of a Starbucks a day? Say it's $3 or $4, okay? What they're really saying is $20,000 amortized over whatever time period at X% interest equals a payment of $3 or $4. That's what it means. Okay. Now, the very first transaction that I ever did, ever, I was 26 years old. This guy in downtown Seattle, we were leasing office space in Pioneer Square. I watched him do this, and I thought I had just witnessed the second coming. I couldn't believe it. And he used this thing called an HP12C calculator. I went, okay, I'm in. You're my guy. Show me more. It took less than 2 minutes, and he made a several $100,000 deal. And that's what he did. He just amortized the difference in the price, looked at her side and said, do you really want to walk away from this for a price of coffee a day? And the guy said, well, of course not. Okay, well, that's what this is. And they made the deal. It was crazy. So in the course, I talk about another 4 or 5 of these little tactics, but the ridiculous is a really effective price handling technique. And the countermeasure to having someone use the ridiculous on you is don't negotiate in amortized dollars, deal in today's dollars. And the fact is, whatever the $350 a day is, amortized over such and such at such and such a rate, is really $20,000 today. So that's the countermeasure. All right, last one. How do you get people to change their minds? And my answer is you don't. You can't force someone to change their minds. But you can do that. What you can do is get them to begin to doubt their position. Okay, so I'll give you a non-real estate related example, but it's just a simpler example that people understand. Anybody ever been to trial in a court? I'm the only one? Okay, a few of us have. So it's a very common thing, we've all heard this before, settling on the courthouse steps. Okay, so what does that mean? But more importantly, why does that happen and how does that happen? Well, let's get this out of the way first. If you find yourself in a trial, and I hope you don't, I've been in a couple of them, but all the money that you pay for attorney's fees, 95% of it is already spent by the time you get to court. It's on the research stuff. Okay, that's how attorneys make most of their money in the trial prep, not the actual trial. But in terms of getting clients to settle, what attorneys will do is they will start to whisper to their client. It's a metaphor, whisper. You know, that judge, you just never know what's going to happen with him or her. You know, I feel okay about the jury, but if they don't rule in our favor, I won't see you for 20 years. I mean, just whatever it is. You chip away at someone's belief system and get them to doubt themselves. So I don't have a visual here, but I'll just kind of hand talk this. What you're doing when you get someone to change their mind is you're taking them from what they currently believe to what you want them to believe. It's a journey from and to. That's what getting someone to change their mind is. So, Kelly, you're having a problem with the price, right? $4,000 on a piece of land. What you want to do is to get the seller to go from I'm holding out for my $4,000 to I better take this today or I'm screwed. Okay? So that's where you start. These are the two positions. You have to be clear about the positions. This is the current position. This is the new position or beliefs, whatever you want to call it. So your job as a negotiator is to build that path between the two positions. The way that you do that is to get your counterpart to begin to doubt their current position. So there's a lot more about negotiating out there. I mean, I'm not going to kid you about that. But those are the 10 things I think everybody needs to know. And the interesting thing about those, if you stop and look at them, read them, and think about them, is that they don't just play in your business negotiations, they also play in your interpersonal negotiations, because people are people. They just are. You know, they ain't going to change.